He was just asking about the size of the basement. It was 40 or 50,000 cubic foot basement, which is, 4,000 plus or minus square foot with 12-foot
So you were
ceilings.
doing all your tests in the basement?
All my tests in the basement. I did test upstairs to see what we had, and they ran between 0.8 and 2, whereas in the basement it's regularly at 7.
Is all the basement conditioned space?
No, not conditioned at all. There's nothing in the basement. Big empty room.
You say these are poured walls?
Poured walls. 12-inch thick poured walls.
Have you done the calculations, see how much intake air you would need to evacuate on?
The question was if I'd done calculations on intake air. I didn't. Once I got to the point where I identified what the problem was other than sub-slab, I kind of stopped. Because I could spend a tremendous amount of time and money figuring out what the problem is. But I want to get paid. I've got thousands of dollars into my testing that I've not gotten paid for. I've been there a lot.
How about the follow-up question after I ask the technical question is that if you consider the use of ERVs, where are you going to pull the outside air from without it being contaminated with material?
Well, the question was if I was going to use an ERV, where would we pull the air from? I did consider an ERV. When I did the calculations, it came up to about 1,000 CFM that I'd need to change in order to drop it from 7 to 3 point something. And that's a lot. And I actually did order 2 ERVs and brought them out there, and I said, bank, we have these, we want to do this, and put them in, and they said, hold on. Which is nice, because I got to put 2 ERVs into my inventory. Yeah, a small one and a large one, because to do it. The whole back side of the house is walkout, so there is a tremendous amount of space that I could get to that's not near the poured walls. Like I said, if you saw the one, on the one room that has 3 outside walls, the levels in the room were at 3. Although I tented the floor in that room, and the floor was putting off. The numbers that I got are qualitative, not quantitative. I'm not measuring scientific measurements on fluxes and stuff. What I was trying to figure out is, indeed, is this the source? And if so, is it equally distributed around the basement, or is it more of a localized problem?
The basement is considered livable space?
Yes. Well, it's a 4,000 square foot basement. I have but 2 of my houses in that basement. Yeah. Yeah, this was it's a ranch house. Brand new ranch house.
I know the area. That's the reason I'm asking. If it's not livable space, why are you concerned?
They want to sell it.
It's not livable space. Well, the person who was living there, who was going to live there, their intent was to buy it and use the basement as a office and stuff. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, this was a house that originally was over $1 million, and they got it for $450,000. I mean, their cost on the house was, like $70 a square foot. I mean, the bank lost $40 a square foot on just build-out cost.
A final question to you. You're the one that said you had a lifetime warranty.
The lifetime warranty on the radon levels being below the action level. But that doesn't mean the fan's going to work forever. It doesn't mean the pipe is going to last forever.
How are you going to handle this house?
Well, remarkably enough, now the question is how to handle this house. Remarkably enough, my warranty now, the second line of it says, I'm only removing from soil gas, not from building materials or items brought into the house. And it's italicized and underlined, and it is the first thing people see on every single page that I have. I mean, clearly, I am not getting rid of it from building materials.
Okay, and another suggestion to consider, and this worked for me in another similar type situation and stuff. You said the living area upstairs is very low?
Very low.
Okay. How many of you from the old school here remember the solution to pollution is? Solutions, right. One of the options that you can do, it's an easy experiment, is to pull conditioned air, it's energy neutral, from upstairs and throw it downstairs.
Pressurized.
And now pressurization won't work for radon emanation, it only works for soil gas. But I'm pretty sure based on what he's said so far, is he's dealing with a very tight basement. So if you throw, 400 CFM from upstairs into the downstairs, you're not really affecting the energy component of the envelope, right? In terms of you're not bringing in air from outside, et cetera. All you're looking at is a fan. You might want to give that a try. And just a quick experiment. It's real easy to do. I assume there's a door upstairs?
2 of them.
Yeah, go into the, okay. you'll love this part. Go to Pizza Hut, get some cardboard, and build a box. Get a RP265. There we go. We'll put in use a couple RP265s, and just blow air through the basement door downstairs at the CRM, and see what happens, in decay. And see, using that as a relative number, plus what their chart says in terms of that, how much CFM do you need if it's going to work? And then at that point, you have to go look at commercial units, for commercial floors, because obviously you can't have have that. But a little bit of ventilation under the circumstances tends to go a long way. And if you can pull the air from a conditioned space and throw it down in there, it's a greener approach, and it's a lot less trouble to figure out in terms of with ERVs. Because with ERVs, you get into pulleys, you get into desiccant wheels, you get into the long-term maintenance aspect of it. A supplemental air makeup system in terms of moving air from A to B. Right. You just got the fan.
Is the basement not conditioned now?
The basement is not conditioned now, but if that's the case, I'm curious as to, then does the fan need to be constantly in the auto position, or the on position rather than the auto, so you must run it consistently. And the only problem with that in our area is it tends to put moisture back in the air when you're not being conditioned, and it tends to, the humidity level goes up in the living space.
Exactly. In the final design, after you do the experiment, convince yourself that it works. See? In the final design, what you have to do is build in something. Okay, sorry. In the final design, under that thing, this isn't like throw a couple RP265s in the wife's closet and run away and cash the check. You're going to have to do your homework in terms of the moisture that you're pulling from upstairs, dropping it downstairs. You're going to have some type of allowances for dehumidification in the system. There are units available and there's technology available. One option that you have on this particular one is, can you modify or tap into the existing building mechanicals, or put in a 5-ton, how big did you say that basement was?
4,000.
4,000 square foot, 5-ton. Those in the audience that are mechanical guys, about, what do you think, 5 tons?
5 tons about right.
Yeah, about right. Throw a 5-ton system in it and condition the basement. All you have to do is just swap air, going back and forth. See, the other thing too is recovery. Emanation takes time to build up. When we say radon, we're talking about integrated, right? In words, if it's 5 1 minute and then it's 0.2 the next, but then at the end of the day it's less than 2, it's not a problem per se, right? Okay, so you can do, play with the mechanicals scenarios in terms of working this thing out. If they're planning on conditioning the space anyway to move into it, they got to have some type of thing to it. The simple solution is, like I said, is to try to move air from upstairs to down to figure out if you ventilate the space, provide some type of ventilation, fixing the problem, then come back with
Just open up the supply plug.
Yep, that would work too.
What
There's
type of
different
heat
approaches that
system?
you can take. There's no canned approach, you just have to.
What type of heating system does the house have?
The house has heat pumps. It's all electric, no combustion. Electric water heaters, electric heating and cooling.
Do you have an HVAC system downstairs?
The question was, is there an HVAC system downstairs? The HVAC systems that service the main floor are located in the basement in the mechanical room, but there is no mechanical system servicing the lower level of the house.
Aren't they gonna need one if they're gonna finish that space in the future?
The question is, are they going to need one? Well, yeah, and that's one of the discussions I had with the people is I felt it would be much easier to tackle the problem if we went ahead and looked at finishing the basement out. We could lower the amount of volume of the space. They'd have walls that were finished, and we could look at either depressurizing the false wall cavity between the block there were a lot of other options if it was finished. And their response was, we didn't buy into a radioactive house. And obviously on a disclosure statement, that's probably something they don't want to necessarily put on their disclosure statement as our foundation is emanating radon. And that's kind of their concern. They didn't need to buy this house. It was just such a good deal, they bought it. That's why they haven't moved into it, because they don't need to move into it. So they just kind of don't want this
Well,
problem.
couldn't they even just install the HVAC system, with ducts going?
Oh,
to
I'm
various
sure they could. The
parts
question
of
was,
the-
could they install it? And yeah, they can. It's a matter of what they want to do, and that's how I kind of put it back to them. Ultimately, I've done what I was contracted with the bank to do. Now, and there are plenty of people I called, they said, just walk away. But I'm serious, I mean, I called so many people, and the thing is, I don't want to do that, I'm a mitigator. I consider myself a mitigator, I want to solve the problem. I don't like giving people problems, I like giving them solutions. And I want to give them a solution, but it's a process, and but it's back on them. What do they want? What is the bank going to pay for? I'll try anything, you know. I'm more than happy to go up and try the approach with the positive air. Matter of fact, my guys are actually working not 6 blocks away tomorrow, so I have a feeling they're going to be over there, and we're going to be trying.
You've got 2 ERVs. The bank hasn't given you an opportunity to just like wheel one of them in and rig it up temporarily to see what happens?
Well, the bank has been very hesitant. I don't think that they want to admit that there's anything going on that's out of the ordinary. And, you know, when I went back to them, I said, okay, this is where we're at, this is what's going on. They said, well, send us what you've got and we'll get back to you.
Yeah. See ya.
So, but, you know, they were my client, but the person who's buying the house is the person ultimately who has to decide what they want to do and how they want to proceed, because it's not my house. You know, it's a great, kind of an experiment for me, and it's been a very, very good learning experience, but
They're expensive.
it's not my house, you know. Luckily, though, I've had 2 jobs where we got no communication, and I got to use my ERVs, which is really nice.
Have you talked to the Ready Mix company about it at all?
The question was if I talked to Ready Mix Company. No, I did track down where the cement came from. I was able to do that, finding the builder who had originally built the house, finding where it came from. Like I said, it did come from a local quarry. But as far as anything else beyond that, you know, I kind of was lost. When I called people around the country, most people were like, oh no, it's not possible, you must have another source. That was pretty much the consensus. And Bill Broadhead was very helpful, but, you know, once again, everybody had a different idea. Oh, well, you know, you should measure decay products because it's easier to take care of decay products than it is to take care of radon, and everybody has a theory on how to do it. And I don't know who the cement manufacturer was, which of the companies put it together in our area. That I don't know.
I would think they'd be interested. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but geez.
No, my lawyer was very interested, though. Oh my God, was he salivating. I'm serious.
Well,
He
I would
charged me.
think-
When I went to him and I said, okay, this bank is saying I'm responsible for it because they contracted with me to fix it. I went to a lawyer who's, I'd been doing home inspections for a long time. It's a person who's represented our company through many, 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 many claims. Therefore, he has lots of experience with that, and oh my gosh, was he excited. Class action lawsuit, oh man, you could see it. And he helped me, did my consultation, helped me write my response to the bank, and did not charge me a penny for it.
Did you check any other neighbor's house?
The question was, did I check other neighbors' house? My whole approach to radon is I'm very much a non-alarmist. You know, it just is what it is. The people who are living in that house, I've had a lot of dealings with them. And it's their house and their deal. I don't know that they want their neighbors knowing that that's the case. And so I've been very hesitant to give out information on that without going to them first, because I want to respect, you know, it's their house. It's not my house. If it was my house, boy, I'd be all over the place. There'd be a sign in my front yard.
I'm talking about builder built most of the homes in that.
The builder
area.
built most of the homes.
So they may be houses like that, and this is one way we can save lives.
I would concur, but, that's just a really funny one. I'm really, you know, using the, hey, your neighbor's got a radioactive house, maybe you do too, you should test.
How about the state
Get your
setting out
suit before you know.
indiscreet testing, blanket testing with the
The
area?
question was about the state sending out. Well, I did call the folks from the Department of Consumer Affairs, the EPA folks from the state, and told them about it. And I did call University of Georgia as a cooperative extension office with educators in the state, and I contacted them. And she, Ginger Bennett there, was interested in possibly writing an article on it. But once again, it was getting the person who lives in the house to give permission for that to come about. And I don't know where that's gone. I passed the information on, and I'm kind of like, you guys do what you want to do. To me, gosh, would it be great? I have contacts in the media. I could certainly get a small bit on the news about it.
Don't go there.
But I don't know. That's just, it very well may be that there are more of them out there. But that's, first of all, we got to figure out the solution before you go giving everyone a problem.
Now then you'd have 20 houses that have a problem rather than just the one.
Yeah, it's about solutions, not problems.
My father formed a company, Air Exchange Company, making HRVs. And one of the things they did back when radon became an issue in '88 or about, is they put together just the blowers, not the heat exchange wheels, as a kit for radon mitigators to put in the basement window to see what the effect would be if they were to put it in HRV.
Right.
And so you might consider just
Oh,
doing
that has the idea of air changes is on the forefront of what I would like to try. It's just a matter of how many times I want to drive an hour away and try things to get no return. I mean, it is about finances. I mean, I've lost a lot of money on this job. And the bank asked me for all my testing data, and I said, fine, I'll turn it over to you, but understand, I didn't charge you for any of this, and if I give it to you and you use it, I expect to be paid for it, and I'm going to send you a bill for it. And you don't have to pay the bill, but if you give that information to other people and use that information to make decisions, then you need to reimburse me for that. And even if it's just for the price of the devices and the electrics, because, I mean, some of them, the electrics were at 0. I mean, when I had the floor was at 118, that's only because, I don't know what it was, because electric was at 0 when it was all said and done. It went from 580 to 0 in 48 hours.
All right. Thank you. That was a good exchange. Who out there has had a building material issue? What were some of the things you found was it the concrete? Was there something else? Fieldstone?
Me?
Anyone?
I'm from New Mexico, and there's a product called pumicecrete out there, where they just mix up little bits of pumice as the aggregate in a concrete slurry and pour that in forms. And there's a little bit of something radioactive in the pumice. Yeah.
Pumicecrete?
Yeah. So they'll form a 14, 16-inch wall with pumice. So it ends up, it's very porous until it's plastered on both sides. And it's used, it has some mass to it, and it has some insulating properties, and it's structural. And that pumice has some radioactivity in it. So that's difficult to mitigate. I'm suggesting to the builders that they put pipes in, there's a bond beam above the pumicecrete wall, and to just let in some small pipes every so often in the bond beam so that wall can breathe upwards, instead of, if you can imagine a plastered wall, it's going to have holes in it wherever there's switches and outlets. And so that air from the pumicecrete wall can come in the house, but if the wall can vent up into the attic space and out, then I think that'll reduce levels. But that's been a tricky one.
Sounds good.
Not as complicated as yours.
We had 2 cases of similar situation. One was we tested the house, and at the time of the test, the basement was finished. One of the rooms were just closed. We could not see what's in it. After the test results came out, we see in that section of the basement, radon is like 6 or 8, and the other side is less. So we wanted to see what is in there. So we usually do some sort of diagnostics afterwards, see where the source might be. And at that time, the owners were home. We opened the door, and apparently this guy, the owner is a geologist, and he stores a lot of rocks in that room. And I'm also a geochemist, and so we wanted to see what's going on, and we measured some of them. There were a lot of granite and granite dilated rocks, and they had quality of different specimens, and that was one of the reasons. So we asked them to remove it, and it came okay. The second story is that we tested the house, and we found out that they stored a lot of, one of the older mansion type houses, and they stored a lot of bituminous coal. It was coal burning furnace in, and huge part of that house and in the basement were storage for coal, and they never removed this. And some of that coal also contained, because of the reducing environment and the good location for, radium deposit, basically it had more activities, and that was like $2 million house. So we asked them to, and if you want to go, we would want to mitigate it, it would be like 5 or 6 systems. It was a huge area to cover. So we asked them to remove that, and they did. And fortunately, it's right on below the guidelines. So these are the 2 stories I have for 30 years of working on this.
So basically, you just need a wheelbarrow. That's how we get rid of radon. You just bring a wheelbarrow in, we throw some stuff in it, we just wheel it out.
Not everywhere we need mitigation.
Any other unique ones?
One of the techniques I used, there wasn't a problem, but it was a potential. So what I did is I just took some concrete from the floor, I took the material from underneath the house, and I took concrete from the wall, and then some other samples from another house. Put them in a 4-inch can, sent them down to my lab, asked them to tell me how much gamma is coming off of each, and use that as a comparison. Very, very simple comparison. And I did not have a problem, but I have seen coal that I almost sent to the lab, but I didn't. But that's a very simple technique to do intercomparison, very inexpensive. In fact, the lab didn't even charge me.
Years ago, when I was still a mitigator, my fingernails used to get dirty at that time, caulk all over my clothes. You all know that, right? I had a very similar situation. The guy was a geologist, and he had these samples. I think you went to that house too, Steve, in Westport on the water.
Yeah, it was I think it was 2.1 in the basement and 1,050 on the first floor.
Right, he had a filing cabinet full of geological samples. He goes, I got some deep river samples over here. And we're like, get your filing cabinets out of here and retest your house. It was a really interesting guy because he came walking out from across the street at the beach, and his feet were black. And I can't remember what chemical he put on it. I think it was potassium permanganate, because he was trying to get rid of his athlete's foot. And I'm going, you're just rotting your feet away, So he was an interesting guy. That was an easy fix, but he did waste both of our time out there, 2 different companies. I also had one that was mud brick, where in Ohio, where a relocation company owned it. Actually, it was AT&T. It was transferring somebody, and the basement ended up being below 4. The upper floors were all above 5, and the mud brick was part of the decor. The walls were exposed, and the people who bought it, it was like, well, you have to fix this. And we're just like, no, look at the guarantee here. We don't have to fix anything. This is not our issue. And AT&T just turned around and said, well, what do you want? Here's $10,000. Will you just take the house and just be quiet about it? And they said, yeah. And so that's how that one got treated. Otherwise, what do you do? Encapsulate the walls on that one? This is an old house. It was drafty as it was. So we all have these really unique building material issues and sources, and we have to remember those things as we go. So since we're done with that part of it, I want to go to Henry Boyer. Yes, Jay?
I had a very unique situation with the house one time. It started off around 1520 picocurie. We mitigated it. It came down to 6. Couldn't really do communication studies because the guy had a wood shop down there, and his basement was just piled full of wood. And I said, well, we'll come back, but you need to clean the basement out so we can get through. And over the summer, he got all the wood out, and here it turns out that the radon was coming out of the wood that he had stored in his basement. So the only thing I could assume is, the trees grow in the nutrients and it sucks it up in.
So again, the old wheelbarrow technique is the best way.
Exactly.
So when will Radon Way be carrying
wheelbarrows?
Yeah.
They're special wheelbarrows. And, by the way, I like the plug for the fans. I just found out right before I walked in here that my son called me up and said, I got braces now. And I said, oh, God, I need to sell more product. So the wheelbarrows are definitely next.
Dave, let me toss a couple out there that haven't been addressed that I see. One concern in my area, I'm in the mountains, and a lot of the houses have very large fieldstone dry stack fireplaces in them, which may or may not be an issue. I have one, I verified it was when I had a RAD 7 that I had borrowed for diagnosing another problem house, and it was a room, probably square footage about half the size of this with a low ceiling, and the fireplace took up one entire wall of that house. We had a fantastic sub-slab pressure field, extension. Couldn't get down below 4. We were at about 4.5 picocuries. We tried a couple different fans. Finally measured the middle of the room was testing about 4.5 picocuries. Isolated the probe against the fireplace. It was over 8. You know, so that's nothing much you could do with that one. It was a vacation home. They weren't there much very often, so it wasn't a big deal. But I have also seen a large chunk of granite about the size of this table with carpet around it in the middle of a living room floor that the realtor referred to as a, quote, interesting architectural detail. A little sign they have there. And I've seen a slab of granite about the size of a minivan up on end with its own little room built around it that was testing over 100 picocuries in that part of the basement. So we did mitigate that one quite easily, actually, just by putting a sheet of plastic over it and running a small 1-inch pipe off of our suction pipe in under the plastic. So, but you know, and I would say too, don't freak out just if you see a lot of natural building materials. There was one about 2 years ago that had me worried when I went in. The entire basement had slate tile on the floors. It had granite countertops in the bathroom and a little wet bar, and it had a dry stack stone fireplace in it. And it was about 20 something on the measurement, and we just did a standard sub-slab suction. It came back at 2 point something. So I was concerned about all these materials, but it turned out they were pretty much irrelevant in that house. So they're not necessarily a big contributor.